So here's a quick lesson on tone production in the right hand for the classical guitar. And I've been doing a little bit of adjudicating lately. I was in Calgary recently and teaching some master classes here in Victoria and elsewhere. And one thing I brought up with a number of students in all these places is talking about using the right hand to make on-the-fly tone production changes. So first I want to talk about the right hand tone production, just like a little bit about producing a nice tone with the right hand. And then I want to talk about one of the difficulties of the guitar as an instrument and how to combat that difficulty. And then I don't really want to talk about nails very much, but I'll do a brief conversation about nails, although that can be addressed through a different article. So there's lots of different ways to produce different tone or sounds on the guitar. And there's some obvious ways. So tasto, ponticello, so a very bright, naily sound, kind of a warmer sound. And then there's also the angle at which your nails hit the string. So if I play very perpendicular to the string, I get this sound. Now listen as I get more parallel. Back to perpendicular. Parallel. So the more parallel I play, the more the tone kind of smooths out, becomes rounder. And the more perpendicular I play, the more it's getting this naily sound. So, and then of course we can combine the two things. We could go very tasto in parallel, or we can go very ponticello and perpendicular, or we could try to mix it in a different way. Go tasto, but a little bit of perpendicular nail angle, and or get ponticello for kind of a bright, tight sound, but go a little parallel so it's not too naily. So you can produce all these different sounds with your right hand, and some of them require moving, but some of them just require this very subtle change in angle. Now, when we're playing guitar and we're playing pieces, one of the things that we have to think about is that the top string here is very small and thin. It's the highest sound, it's also the thinnest string. And so it's not a very balanced sound when we're playing pieces. So one thing you want to be very careful of is that students have a tendency to do this. To move their hand down across the strings this way. Just because the resistance of the strings is pulling their hand in that way. But that's not what we want, because if we go ponticello on the first string, it's making a bright, thin string sound even brighter and thinner. It's just getting thinner and thinner. We want to move our hand this way so that as we go towards the bright string, we actually use a more tasto kind of sound and keep our nail angle parallel to the string. And there's another benefit to this, is that our fingers naturally extend in that direction. So they're extending in that direction there. Not down here like this. That produces quite the bend in the wrist, right? So we actually don't want that. We want this. So when we're playing scales, for example, we should start off at a halfway kind of point. As we progress, we want to progress up this way. That way we can keep the warmth and the good sounds of the guitar coming as we progress through these thinner strings. And learning to do that is very, very important. But it's not everyone's first reaction, so students have to really practice that. So my first recommendation is that you first try all those things that I demonstrated. Make sure you can play with a bright sound and then smooth it out. Because if you need to know the difference between what produces a bright sound and what produces a warm sound. You don't want to just do warm only. You want to be able to know both very specifically as a physical motion. That way, when you're performing a piece, if you hear something that's bright, you just do a slight angle change with your hand, and suddenly your tone is really nice and warm. If you get nervous when you perform, you're a nervous player and your tone gets thinner, whatnot, all you have to realize is that it doesn't matter if your hand is shaking, for example. You just move it to that angle and it will produce a nicer sound. So you just tell your hand, no, not like that, not like that. So just learning to be very specific and very clear with your hand motions, you can combat bad tone on the fly. Also, when you're practicing, of course, you have to practice going up in that direction. No matter what you're doing, it has to be like that, not like that. So I just can't stress that enough, getting used to doing that. And then practice your pieces in front of friends or your teacher and try demonstrating these things, just like I demonstrated in the video. That way you can really start to feel that when you're performing, you can make these changes on the fly and you can demonstrate it. You can do it regardless of how your hands feel. Now the last thing that I was going to talk about was nails. And you can check out my nail article on This is Classical Guitar under the lesson page. It goes over shaping your nails and filing them and all that stuff. But again, having like a multi-sided nail file is really, really important. So you just get all those nicks out of the nail, and each level of file kind of reduces those nicks more and more until your nails are super smooth. And of course, the shape of your nail is really important. So you have to do some research into that, because all of these things, both the lesson that I just gave and the nail idea, contributes to a good sound. And you need both of those things, good nails and good technique, to combine and make sure that your sound is what you want it to be. And like I said, don't just go for a smooth, warm sound. Explore what creates a bright sound too, because that will be needed at times as well. So I hope you found that kind of useful and at least gave you some ideas to think about.